The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Vigilant. Commander Jake Harris stood near the main viewing screen, watching the endless black void stretch out before him. His ship was on routine patrol near the asteroid belt, the same boring mission they had done 100 times before. Nothing ever happened out here. Nothing ever changed. Jake was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years, and most of that time had been spent watching empty space. Humanity had sent probes to distant stars and found nothing. They had listened for radio signals and heard only silence. The universe, it seemed, was empty. Humans were alone. Lieutenant Megan Torres sat at her sensor station, her fingers moving across the glowing controls. She was young, only 26. But she had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Nothing escaped her attention. That was why Jake had requested her for his crew. "Commander," Megan said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but Jake heard something underneath it. Concern. Maybe fear. "I'm picking up something strange." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "An energy signature, very faint. It's about 200 kilometers off our port side." Megan frowned at her screen. "The thing is, sir, there's nothing there. No asteroid, no debris, just empty space." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 20 years of service, he had learned to trust that feeling. "Can you get a better reading?" Megan adjusted her sensors. The bridge was quiet. The other crew members had stopped their work and were watching. Everyone could feel that something was wrong. "The signature is getting stronger," Megan reported. "It's like something is flickering, like a light that's about to go out." Then the empty space changed. It happened in an instant. One moment there was nothing. The next moment, a massive ship appeared where nothing had been. It was huge, at least 10 times the size of the Vigilant. Its hull was black and angular, covered in strange patterns that seemed to absorb light. It looked like something from a nightmare. "My God," someone whispered. Jake stared at the alien vessel. His mind was racing. For 30 years, humanity had believed they were alone. That belief had just died. "They were cloaked," Megan said. Her voice was shaking now. "They've been hiding there, watching us." The cloak must have failed. Jake grabbed the communication panel. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." He turned to his weapons officer, a young man named Kevin Park. "Charge all weapons. Prepare to fire on my command." Kevin's face was pale. "Sir, that ship is enormous. We can't possibly—" "I know," Jake said. "Do it anyway." The alien ship began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. It was turning toward Earth. Jake understood immediately what that meant. This ship had been watching humanity, studying them, learning their weaknesses. Now it was heading home to report what it had found. Jake had a choice to make. He could run. He could turn the Vigilant around and race back to Earth, warning everyone about what he had seen. But by the time he got there, the alien ship might cloak again and disappear. Humanity would know the enemy existed but would have no idea where they were or what they looked like. Or he could fight. He could attack a ship 10 times his size with almost no chance of survival. But if he could damage them, if he could wound them badly enough, they might not be able to cloak again. Earth would have time to prepare. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. 47 men and women who had trusted him with their lives. They deserved to know the truth. "Listen to me," he said. "That ship is heading for Earth. If we let it go, it will disappear, and we'll never find it again. Our only chance is to hit them now, hit them hard, and make sure Earth knows what's coming." He paused. "I won't order you to do this. Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods. I won't think less of you." Nobody moved. Kevin Park straightened in his chair and said, "Weapons are charged and ready, Commander." Megan Torres looked up from her station. "I'm not going anywhere, sir." Jake felt something warm in his chest. Pride. These people were the best humanity had to offer. "Then let's show them what humans are made of," he said. "All a head full. Attack pattern Delta. The Vigilant surged forward, its engines burning hot and bright. The alien ship saw them coming and began to turn. Strange weapons emerged from its hull, glowing with purple energy. The first shots from the alien ship slammed into the Vigilant's shields. The whole vessel shook. Lights flickered. Somewhere below, Jake heard metal screaming. "Shields at 60%, Kevin reported. Returning fire." The Vigilant's missiles streaked across the void and struck the alien ship. Explosions blossomed against its dark hull. The alien vessel shuddered, and Jake saw something that gave him hope. Sparks, debris, damage. "Their cloak generator is on the lower section," Megan shouted. "I can see the power readings." "If we can hit it, target that section," Jake ordered. "Everything we have." More purple beams struck the Vigilant. The ship lurched sideways. Consoles exploded. Jake was thrown to the floor. When he looked up, he saw fire and smoke filling the bridge. "Shields are gone," Kevin said. Blood was running down his face. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Jake pulled himself back to his feet. Fire. The Vigilant's remaining weapons launched in a single devastating volley. The missiles struck the alien ship's lower section exactly where Megan had indicated. The explosion was massive. When the light faded, Jake could see that a huge section of the alien hull had been torn away. "Their cloak is offline," Megan said. "They can't hide anymore." The alien ship fired again. This time, the beam went straight through the Vigilant's hull. Jake felt the ship dying around him. Systems were failing. The lights went dark, but he was still alive. And so was his mission. "Megan," he said, "transmit all our sensor data to Earth. Everything we recorded. Do it now." Megan's fingers flew across her damaged console. "Transmission sent, Commander." "Earth knows everything." Jake slumped against his chair. The Vigilant was drifting now, powerless and broken. Half his crew was dead. But the alien ship was wounded and exposed. Earth would see it coming. Earth would have time to prepare. He had done his duty. Whatever came next, humanity would not face it blind. Admiral Patricia Grant was eating dinner alone in her office when the message arrived. She was 62 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had commanded the Earth Defense Force for 10 years, and in all that time, she had never received a transmission like this one. She watched the video 3 times. She saw the alien ship appear from nothing. She saw the Vigilant charge into battle against impossible odds. She saw Commander Jake Harris and his crew sacrifice everything to wound the enemy and send this warning home. When she finished watching, Patricia sat in silence for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and made a call that would change human history. Within hours, the leaders of every nation on Earth were gathered in a virtual meeting. They watched the same video Patricia had seen. Some of them cried, some of them prayed, some of them shouted in anger and fear. "The ship is called a Vrax vessel," Patricia explained. She was using data that the Vigilant had captured during the battle. "Based on their technology and their behavior, we believe they have been watching us for years, maybe decades. Their cloak allowed them to remain hidden while they studied our defenses, our weapons, and our weaknesses." "Why?" asked the President of the United States. "What do they want?" "We don't know for certain," Patricia admitted. "But the evidence suggests they see us as a threat. A threat they intend to eliminate." The room exploded into arguments. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to hide. Some refused to believe any of it was real. But in the end, they had no choice. The alien ship was still out there. Damaged but alive. It would call for help. More ships would come, and when they arrived, humanity would face extinction unless they were ready. The nations of Earth began to unite. Old enemies set aside their hatred. Countries that had not spoken in decades opened communication channels. Factories that had built cars and phones started building weapons and warships. Every scientist, every engineer, every worker with useful skills was called to serve. In the middle of this chaos, a man named Dr. Leo Patel came forward with an idea. Leo was a physicist who had spent his career working on theoretical concepts that most people thought were impossible. He was short and thin, with messy hair and glasses that were always sliding down his nose. He looked like a college professor, not a weapons designer, but what he had created could change everything. "I call it the resonance array," Leo explained to a room full of generals and admirals. "It generates a quantum frequency that disrupts molecular bonds. In simple terms, it shakes things apart at the atomic level." "Can it destroy an alien ship?" Patricia asked. "It can destroy anything," Leo said. "The problem is power. To generate a field large enough to affect a ship, I would need more energy than Earth produces in a year." "Then it's useless," one of the generals said. "Not necessarily." Leo adjusted his glasses. "The Vrax ships use a power source we don't fully understand. If we could capture one of their reactors, we might be able to make the array work." Patricia filed that information away. It was a long shot, but long shots were all they had. Meanwhile, the Vigilant drifted in space, broken and silent. Most of her crew was dead. The survivors huddled in the few sections that still had air, waiting for rescue that might never come. Commander Jake Harris was alive, but barely. He had burns on his arms and a piece of metal in his leg. The ship's medical officer, a woman named Tina Lawson, had done what she could with limited supplies, but Jake needed a real hospital. "How many did we lose?" Jake asked. His voice was weak. Tina's eyes were red from crying. 23 confirmed dead, 8 missing. The rest of us are hurt, but we'll survive." 23 people. Jake had served with some of them for years. He knew their families, their dreams, their favorite jokes. Now, they were gone. "We hurt them," Megan Torres said. She was sitting nearby, her arm in a makeshift sling. "The alien ship is still out there, but they can't cloak anymore. Earth can see them coming." Jake nodded slowly. It wasn't much comfort, but it was something. His people had not died for nothing. 3 days later, rescue arrived. A ship called the Defiance, commanded by Captain Claire Dawson, found the Vigilant drifting among the asteroids. Claire was a tough woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She had served with Jake years ago and considered him a friend. "You look terrible," Claire said when she saw him. Jake tried to smile. "You should see the other guy." The survivors of the Vigilant were brought aboard the Defiance and treated for their injuries. As the ship headed back to Earth, Jake was taken to the medical bay where doctors worked to save his leg. When he woke up after surgery, Admiral Patricia Grant was standing beside his bed. "Commander Harris," she said, "you did something remarkable out there. You gave us a chance." "I just did my job," Jake said. "You did more than that." Patricia sat down in a chair next to his bed. "I've read your file. 20 years of service. No family. No close relationships. Just the job. Just the mission." Jake said nothing. It was true. He had given everything to the Defense Force. It was the only life he knew. "I need people like you," Patricia continued. "People who understand what's coming. People who have looked the enemy in the face and didn't run away." She leaned forward. "I'm promoting you to captain. I'm giving you a new ship. The Vigilant, too. And I'm putting you in command of our Vanguard squadron." Jake stared at her. "You want me to lead the first wave?" "I want you to be the tip of the spear," Patricia said. "When the Vrax come back, and they will come back, you'll be the first thing they see." Jake thought about his crew. 23 dead. He thought about the alien ship, massive and terrifying. He thought about Earth, filled with billions of people who had no idea what was coming for them. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I can do that." Patricia nodded and stood up. "Get some rest, Captain. The real fight is coming." She walked out of the medical bay, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the enemy was gathering. Somewhere out there, death was coming for humanity. But humanity would be ready. Jake would make sure of it. 6 months passed faster than anyone expected. Factories worked day and night. Workers slept in shifts. Children learned in schools that the universe was not empty, that monsters were real, and that their parents were building weapons to fight them. Captain Jake Harris stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Vigilant II. She was bigger than his old vessel, faster, and armed with the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created. But Jake knew it would not be enough. Nothing they had built would be enough. The Vrax Armada appeared at the edge of the solar system on a Tuesday morning. 73 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons that glowed with purple energy. They moved in perfect formation, like wolves hunting prey. Admiral Patricia Grant watched them from the orbital station Unity, which hung in space above Earth. She had positioned the defense fleet near Mars, using the red planet's gravity and orbital stations as a defensive position. It was the best strategy she could create. She prayed it would be good enough. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant," she said into the communication system. Her voice was calm and steady, even though her heart was pounding. "The enemy is here. We knew this day would come. We prepared for it. Now we fight for our homes, our families, and our future. Give them nothing. Take from them everything." Across the fleet, men and women checked their weapons and said silent prayers. They came from every nation on Earth. Derek Cho from California sat in his fighter cockpit, thinking about his mother. Natalie Vance from Texas gripped her controls and remembered her little brother. Yusuf Ahmad from Michigan whispered words of faith under his breath. Jake Harris looked at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were not running. "You heard the Admiral," Jake said. "Today we show the universe what humans can do. Today we make them afraid of us." The Vrax Armada approached Mars. Their formation was perfect, their movements coordinated. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost a war. Humanity was just another species to be harvested, another obstacle to be removed. They did not understand what they were facing. The battle began with fire and thunder. Human ships launched missiles by the thousands. Energy weapons lit up the darkness of space. The Vrax responded with their own devastating attacks. Purple beams cut through human vessels like knives through paper. Jake led his squadron straight at the enemy center. "Stay tight," he ordered. "Watch each other's backs. Make every shot count." Around him, human pilots fought and died. He saw Derek Cho destroy 3 enemy fighters before a beam caught his wing. The young pilot managed to eject before his ship exploded. Natalie Vance was not so lucky. Her fighter was vaporized in an instant, leaving nothing behind. The losses were catastrophic. For every Vrax ship that fell, 5 human vessels were destroyed. The enemy was too strong, too advanced, too numerous. But the humans did not retreat. They pushed forward, trading their lives for damage, their blood for wounds in the enemy fleet. In the center of the battle, the carrier New Hope was hit by multiple enemy beams. Her engines failed. Her hull was torn open. She began to drift toward the Vrax flagship. Helpless and dying, Captain Ryan Ortega stood on the bridge of his ruined ship. He was 35 years old. He had a wife on Earth and a daughter he had never met. She had been born 2 weeks ago while he was on patrol. He had planned to meet her when this was over. Now he would never see her. "All hands, abandon ship," Ryan ordered. "Get to the escape pods." "That's an order." His crew ran for the exits. They trusted him. They believed he would be right behind them. He was not. When the last escape pod launched, Ryan walked to the engineering section. The New Hope was drifting closer to the Vrax flagship. If he could overload the reactors at the right moment, if he could turn his dying ship into a bomb. He worked quickly. His hands were steady. He was not afraid. He was angry. Angry at the Vrax for coming to his home. Angry at the universe for making this necessary. Angry that he would never hold his daughter. "This is for her," he whispered. Then he pressed the button. The New Hope exploded with the force of a small sun. The blast tore through the Vrax flagship, ripping it apart from the inside. Secondary explosions rippled through the enemy formation as ships too close to escape were caught in the destruction. 17 Vrax vessels were destroyed in that single moment. Among them was the enemy admiral's ship. The remaining Vrax hesitated. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they were confused. Their leader was dead. Their formation was broken, and the humans, these primitive creatures they had come to exterminate, were still fighting. "They're pulling back," Megan Torres reported from her station on the Vigilant 2. Her voice was filled with disbelief. "The Vrax are retreating," Jake stared at his screen. She was right. The enemy ships were turning away, fleeing toward the outer solar system. They had come with 73 vessels. They were leaving with 56. "Do we pursue?" asked Kevin Park. Jake shook his head slowly. "No. We've hurt them, but we're hurt too. We need to regroup. They'll be back." The human fleet gathered near Mars, counting their dead and repairing their wounded. The final numbers were terrible. Humanity had lost 40% of their ships. Thousands of men and women were dead. Entire squadrons had been wiped out, but they had won. They had faced the greatest military force in the galaxy and made them run. The Vrax had learned a lesson today. Humans did not surrender. Humans did not give up. Humans fought until their last breath and then found ways to fight some more. On Earth, people watched the news with tears in their eyes. They mourned the dead. They celebrated the victory. They knew this was only the beginning. Captain Jake Harris sat alone in his quarters that night. He looked at a picture on his wall. It showed his old crew, the original Vigilant, gathered for a group photo. More than half of them were dead now. Soon, more would join them. "We're going to finish this," he said to the picture. "I promise you. We're going to make them pay for every single life they've taken." Outside his window, Mars glowed red against the darkness of space. The enemy was out there, licking their wounds and planning their revenge. The second wave was coming, but humanity would be waiting. The weeks after the first battle were filled with grief and determination. Memorials were held for the fallen. Names were carved into walls. Stories were told about heroes like Ryan Ortega, who had given his life to wound the enemy. But there was no time to rest. Scout ships reported that the Vrax were gathering a new fleet at the edge of the solar system. This one would be larger. This one would not retreat. Admiral Patricia Grant called an emergency meeting aboard the station Unity. The room was filled with captains, scientists, and military leaders. Their faces were tired and worried. They had won the first battle, but they all knew the war was far from over. Dr. Leo Patel stood at the front of the room. His clothes were wrinkled and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. He had been working on the resonance array without stopping since the battle ended. "The weapon is ready," Leo said. "Or at least, the design is complete. The problem is power. I need Vrax dark matter cores to generate enough energy. Without them, the array is useless." "Where can we get these cores?" Patricia asked. Lieutenant Megan Torres stepped forward. She had been analyzing data from the battle, studying every piece of wreckage and every enemy ship they had damaged. "The debris field near Mars," she said. "The destroyed Vrax ships are still floating out there. Some of them still have intact power cores. If we can salvage them, we can bring them back." "That area is behind enemy lines," Patricia said. "The Vrax have been patrolling it constantly. Anyone we send might not come back." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. This mission was likely suicide. Captain Jake Harris stood up from his chair. "I'll go." Patricia looked at him. She had expected this. Jake had already proven he was willing to die for humanity. But she needed him alive for the coming battle. "You're too valuable," she said. "I need you leading the vanguard when the Vrax attack." "With respect, Admiral. This mission is more important." Jake's voice was firm. "If the array works, we might actually win this war. If it doesn't work, nothing else matters anyway. Let me do this." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Assemble your team. You leave in 12 hours. Jake gathered the best people he could find. Beth Morrison was an engineer who could fix anything with wire and determination. Adam Reyes was her partner, a quiet man who had a gift for understanding alien technology. Tina Lawson had recovered from her injuries on the old Vigilant and insisted on coming along as the team medic. Greg Sullivan was a weapons expert who had fought in 3 wars before joining the Defense Force. They loaded into a small, fast ship called the Shadow. It was designed for stealth, not combat. Their plan was simple: sneak into the debris field, find intact power cores, and get out before the Vracs noticed them. The journey to Mars took 2 days. They flew in silence, running without lights, barely breathing. Every minute they expected to see enemy ships appear on their sensors. They reached the debris field without being detected. What they found was horrible and amazing at the same time. Pieces of ships floated everywhere. Human vessels mixed with Vracs wreckage, bodies drifted in the vacuum, frozen forever in the darkness. "Focus on the mission," Jake said. His voice was tight. He recognized some of those human ships. He had known people who served on them. Beth and Adam suited up and went outside to search for power cores. The work was slow and dangerous. Vracs technology was strange and unpredictable. One wrong move could cause an explosion. "I found one," Adam reported after 2 hours of searching. "It's intact. Power readings are stable." "Good," Jake said. "Bring it in. How many more do we need?" "At least 3, Beth answered. 4 would be better." They searched for hours. Megan watched the sensors constantly, looking for any sign of enemy patrols. So far, they had been lucky. Their luck ran out when they found the second core. "Contact," Megan said suddenly. 3 Vracs patrol ships, coming in fast. Jake's heart dropped. Their little stealth ship could not outrun Vracs warships. They could not fight them either. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. 15 minutes, maybe less. Jake made a quick decision. "Keep working. Get as many cores as we can before we have to run." The team worked faster now. Beth and Adam moved through the debris like ghosts, pulling cores from wrecked ships and loading them into the Shadow. Greg Sullivan manned their small weapons array, ready to fight even though he knew they could not win. 12 minutes passed. They had 3 cores loaded. "I see a 4th, Adam said. "It's stuck in a large piece of wreckage. I can get it, but I need time." "You have 3 minutes," Jake said. Adam worked frantically. The Vracs ships were visible now, 3 dark shapes growing larger on the screen. Greg charged the weapons. "Got it," Adam shouted. He grabbed the 4th core and began pulling himself back toward the Shadow. The first Vracs ship fired. The beam missed Adam by meters, striking a piece of debris instead. The explosion knocked him spinning. "Adam!" Beth screamed. Greg returned fire. Their small weapons barely scratched the enemy hull, but it distracted them. The second Vracs ship turned toward the Shadow. Adam grabbed a piece of floating metal and pushed himself toward the ship. Tina was waiting at the airlock, ready to pull him inside. The third Vracs ship fired. This time, the beam hit Greg Sullivan's weapons station. The explosion killed him instantly. "Greg's gone," Beth said. Her voice was breaking. "We have to go now." Adam tumbled through the airlock. Tina sealed the door behind him. Jake slammed the engines to full power. The Shadow was fast, but the Vracs ships were faster. They pursued through the debris field, firing again and again. Beams lit up the darkness around them. Jake flew like a man possessed. He dodged through wreckage, using destroyed ships as cover. One Vracs vessel crashed into a large piece of debris and exploded. The other 2 kept coming. "We can't outrun them," Megan said. "We don't have to outrun them," Jake replied. "We just have to reach the jump point." The Mars jump point was just ahead. If they could reach it, they could travel back to Earth faster than light. The Vracs could not follow them through a human jump gate. The enemy ships fired everything they had. One beam clipped the Shadow's engine. The ship shuddered and slowed. "Come on," Jake whispered. "Come on." They hit the jump point at maximum speed. Reality twisted around them. Stars blurred. And then they were gone, leaving the Vracs behind. When they emerged near Earth, The ship was damaged and 2 of their crew were dead. But they had the cores. 4 beautiful, glowing Vrax power cores, enough to power the resonance array 3 times over. Jake recorded a message for his crew. "We don't fight because we want to win," he said. "We fight because giving up isn't in our nature." That's what the Vrax never understood about us. He hoped Greg Sullivan would have agreed. The second Vrax armada was twice the size of the first. 140 warships gathered at the edge of the solar system, their dark hulls blocking out entire sections of stars. The new Vrax commander had studied human tactics. He had learned from the failures of his predecessor. This time, there would be no retreat. Earth would burn, or every Vrax ship would die trying. Admiral Patricia Grant watched the enemy fleet from her command center on the station Unity. She felt the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. If she failed today, humanity would cease to exist. "They're moving," her tactical officer reported, "heading straight for Earth. They'll arrive in 6 hours. Patricia nodded. She had prepared for this moment. Dr. Leo Patel's resonance array was mounted on a converted space station at Earth's Lagrange point, powered by the Vrax cores that Jake Harris and his team had retrieved. The weapon was ready. Now she just needed to lure the enemy into range. She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. The enemy thinks they're coming to finish us. They think this will be easy. They're wrong. We're going to make them regret ever finding our little planet. Today we fight for everyone who can't fight for themselves. Today we show the universe that humanity does not kneel." Across the fleet, men and women prepared for the final battle. They were scared. Many of them knew they would not survive. But not one of them ran. The plan was simple but dangerous. Jake Harris would lead the bait squadron. 50 ships would fly straight at the Vrax armada, making themselves impossible to ignore. They would fight a retreating battle, drawing the enemy closer and closer to Earth, into the firing range of the resonance array. Meanwhile, Captain Claire Dawson would hide the reserve fleet behind Earth's moon. When the array fired, when the enemy was confused and wounded, she would strike from behind and finish them. Jake sat on the bridge of the Vigilant II. His crew was silent. They all understood what was being asked of them. The bait squadron would take the worst of the enemy fire. Most of them would die before the array could fire. "You don't have to do this," Jake said to them. "Any of you. I won't think less of you if you transfer to another ship." No one moved. No one spoke. They just looked at him, with trust in their eyes. Jake felt something burning in his chest. Pride and love, and fierce determination. These people were the best humanity had to offer. "Then let's make history," he said. All ahead, full. The bait squadron flew out to meet the enemy. 50 human ships against 140 Vrax warships. It looked like madness. It was madness. But it was also humanity's only chance. The Vrax commander saw them coming and laughed. These foolish creatures, throwing their lives away in pointless defiance. He ordered his fleet to destroy them. The battle was brutal from the first second. Vrax weapons tore through human ships. Explosions lit up space like terrible fireworks. Jake watched his squadron die around him, ship after ship, vanishing in balls of flame. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Keep pulling them in. Make them chase us." The Vrax obliged. They were eager for the kill, hungry for revenge after their earlier defeat. They pushed forward aggressively, not noticing that they were being led exactly where Patricia Grant wanted them. 20 human ships fell. Then 30. Jake's own vessel was hit twice, losing engines and shields. But they kept fighting, kept retreating, kept pulling the enemy closer to Earth. "We're in range," Megan Torres reported. Her voice was shaking with exhaustion and fear. "The array can fire." Jake opened a channel to Admiral Grant. "We're in position. 18 ships remaining. Fire the weapon, Admiral. Fire it now." Patricia looked at the display screen. The Vrax fleet was perfectly positioned, clustered together in their pursuit of Jake's squadron. If the array worked, most of them would be destroyed. If it failed, humanity was finished. "Leo," she said to Dr. Patel, who was standing beside her. Is it going to work? Leo adjusted his glasses. I believe so. But we've never tested it at full power. Patricia closed her eyes for just a moment. Then she opened them and gave the order. Fire. The resonance array activated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of energy rippled outward from the station. Invisible but incredibly powerful. It passed through space at impossible speed, washing over the Vrax fleet like water through sand. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vrax ships began to fall apart. Their hulls cracked. Their engines exploded. The quantum frequency disrupted their molecular bonds, shaking them apart at the atomic level. Ship after ship simply came to pieces, dissolving into clouds of dust and debris. 97 Vrax vessels were destroyed in seconds. The survivors, stunned and terrified, turned to flee. They flew directly into Claire Dawson's ambush. The reserve fleet emerged from behind the moon at full speed. Claire's ships hit the retreating Vrax like a hammer striking glass. With no leadership and no formation, the enemy had no chance. One by one, the remaining Vrax vessels were hunted down and destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped. The silence that followed was almost holy. For a long moment, no one could believe what had happened. Then, slowly, voices began to fill the communication channels. Laughter, crying, prayers of thanks. Humanity had won. Jake Harris sat in his damaged chair on his damaged ship, staring at the empty space where the enemy fleet had been. His squadron had started with 50 ships. 18 had survived. 32 crews were gone. Their lives traded for victory. But they had done it. They had saved humanity. 3 days later, human intelligence officers intercepted a transmission from Vrax High Command. It was a warning sent to every Vrax ship in the galaxy. Earth was designated a forbidden zone. No Vrax vessel was ever to approach human space again. The species that had conquered 100 worlds had found one world they could not defeat. The predators had learned that humanity did not go quietly into the night. Admiral Patricia Grant held a ceremony for the fallen. Thousands of names were read aloud. Thousands of candles were lit. Tears fell like rain. Afterward, she found Jake standing alone, looking out at the stars. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "They'll tell stories about us now. Other species out there. They'll hear about the small planet that broke the Vrax. They'll wonder what kind of creatures we are." Patricia nodded. "And what will those stories say?" Jake turned to look at her. His eyes were tired but burning with something fierce and unbroken. "They'll say that when darkness came for us, we didn't hide. We didn't run. We stood up and fought. Until darkness was afraid of the light. Thanks for watching. When you wend you that this viver. When you wend you that one. We Captain Aud." He looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were watching. Other civilizations were listening. The universe had learned a new name today. Humanity, and the galaxy would never forget it.